Good evening, everyone. We are about to begin our hangout for the last hangout for the semester. I want to make sure we give everybody an opportunity to get their stuff in on time and do the right thing. I feel like I'm terrible at not getting stuff back in on time, and I apologize for that. I have not, and I'm just going to get it done right away. It is incredibly hot in this house. I don't penalize anybody for this.
Today I'm here to do a demonstration. I recommend reading it because
I'm just going to give everybody 100.
Make sure that your feet are touching each other and they're straightforward. Here's a picture. As you can see, my legs are straight out in front of me, and I am trying to do as far as possible.
1, 2, 0.
Stretching out the hamstring muscles. Give them the maximizing flexibility that you're going to need for this squat.
I'm just going to go to here because I flubbed. Let me accept it. Okay, folks, it is approximately 7:07. I am going to. I sent out an email to everybody. We're hoping that people show up. I did let everyone know that we did have a hangout scheduled for this evening. So we're going to see what happens. At approximately 7:15, if I don't see people by 7:15, I'm going to go ahead and start the lecture on my own. And then from there, I'm going to put out the final assignment information. I'll also put it available for people to see a hangout, well, actually in a video clip, as well as I'll put the stuff in writing. That way people will have information, knowing where they are, what they need to do. In the meantime, I want to make sure that I get everything right. I was negligent with this, and I admit that I'm going to go ahead and that should be no fault of the student. So what I'm probably going to do is we're going to go ahead and advance people a couple of grades and move it on. And we'll just go ahead and let this be a rather intense assignment so people understand what they got to go do. We've got 2 weeks, but I'm going to go ahead and say people need to turn this in by the 4th of December. Okay, so this is Dr. Russell Robinson. We're going to come back around 7:15. Hopefully more people will be here. If they're not here by 7:15, I'm going to continue and go on my own. Wow. Okay, good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Russell Robinson coming to you live from the home office. I hope you're all doing well. I'm going to start things a little early, and I hope people will go ahead and jump in when possible. We are going to discuss rather quickly the parameters for the final presentation. The final presentation is your informative speech. The informative speech, as I said before, is going to be based primarily off of a design, the TED Talk. Basically, you have been asked, according to the assignment that I've given, to discuss how you individually got over your worst fear. And so in doing so, we would like you to create a TED Talk. Now, I'd like for the TED Talk to be modeled after the TED Talks that I'm going to provide links for you in a following email. The TED Talk should be no more than 15 minutes, no less than 10. And you are required to have an audience of at least 6 people. That's according to the syllabus. You have between now and December 4th to finalize this. What I'm looking for specifically are, you need to have a total of, I would say, no more than 10 slides in a PowerPoint presentation, but the slides can't be actual PowerPoint slides. They need to be photographs. The photographs need to be of you, telling us who you are, what you're doing, and so forth. The slides also need to talk about, hello, Sherry, how are you?
Hello, good, thank you.
Good. I'm going over the TED Talk information right now. So what we're going to do is basically just talk about what we want students to do, go over some basic models and ideas of what I would like to see done. Did you get the email I sent yesterday? Or actually on Monday?
Yes, yes.
Good. What questions did you have for me about that? Or do you have any questions for me?
Try to pull it up.
You look like you're just getting it from work.
Yes, I do have it. Go ahead and keep it. I gotta look for that paper.
Okay. So basically what I want you and other students to do is to model the speech pretty much after a TED Talk. This means you're going to need to have an audience of a minimum of 6 people. The TED Talk will need to be a minimum of 10 minutes, no more than 15. Now inside of the presentation, I'm expecting you to use visuals to tell your story, particularly photographs. The topic is how you overcame your worst fear, whatever it is. So the TED Talk usually is modeled primarily after a beginning, a middle, and an end. So the beginning has a very good engagement. Hello, how are you? The beginning has a very good engagement, i.e. an attention getter. Very much what we need to see as we saw in the demonstration speech. With the attention getter, we want you to tell us a little bit about who you are, where you come from, and what your fear is. The fear needs to be something that you were able to conquer. Now, what I would like within the context of this presentation is not something that is personal to the point where it's going to cause you to go to some level of shock or you visit a traumatic event, but something that does offer a level of inspiration to tell us about who you are and how you were able to overcome the fear. Now, how many of you have seen TED Talks before?
I haven't.
You've not seen a TED Talk?
No.
Okay, so what I can do is I can actually send you some links. I think I have some in the syllabus for you already of types of TED Talks. The TED Talk usually is a talk that's among an audience of at least 500 people. And as they give this discussion, there are plenty of visuals to talk about it. In one particular discussion, they were talking about, or a person talked about the notion of being outside of their comfort zone or being comfortable with being uncomfortable, and how the individual discussed the issue of race. Matter of fact, let me see if I can find that TED Talk, because I thought it was very insightful, and it provides an excellent model for what I think you think, what I believe, what I know I'm looking for. Meanwhile, let me also share with you what I have elected to do regarding the demonstration speech. First of all, I was so late in getting this back to you, and I apologize. I was up against a major writing assignment, and I had to get that done so I can make sure that that's out. So what I've decided to do is really give everybody a passing grade of an A on that, because I was so late in getting that to you. So I don't want anyone to be penalized who attempted to turn it in. Now, students who didn't attempt to turn it in or turn in all the components for it, then I'm not going to go ahead and be lenient. But I am doing that because I dropped the ball on that and I own that. And students shouldn't be penalized whenever I drop the ball on something like that. I hope that sits well with you.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
I mean, unless you have an objection. If you have an objection, please let me know.
No.
Nope.
Sure. Good. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go, whoops, if I can get to the right browser. Oh boy, it's been a long semester. I'm so glad it's coming to an end.
I agree.
Let's see what we got here. I'm going to go here. For YouTube, I'm going to open up TED Talks for us. Let's see. Yeah. Where is it opening? That's not opening. I need TED Talks. Come on, come on. All right, so every time I try to, oh, okay, I need to go to a different browser, that's why. Let me see what happens when I go to this. That's live events, so that's going on right now. I want to see if I can find a TED Talk. Go here, TED Talks. Let's take a look at this one in particular. I'm going to send you guys a link to this, and I'll give you a couple of others as well. Let's see, let me open that up.
Of what's important in somebody's life.
Let's see.
We're making their way to a medevac helicopter.
All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this link up for you. I don't know if it will actually share right now, but let's see what happens. If I can go ahead and share this with you. And if I go ahead and do a copy and a paste, let me see if we can go here.
Dr. Robs.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. I was just trying to make sure because I was having problems getting in.
Mm-hmm. Everyone go to your chat window and see if you can get this link I just popped in. Back to the Simon Sinek TED Talk. This one, I'm going to see if I can find another one, which I think is just as good. Let's see what I really like the most. This one, Color Blind or Color Brave. I think this is great. I'm going to send this
Imagine
out
if
to
I
you as
walked you
well.
into a room and I say, and he said,
And I want you to really analyze what they do here in this TED Talk. What they do is they really don't do basically a, hello, my name is. It's already understood. People know who you are and what your name is. So I provided 2 links to TED Talks for you to go ahead and monitor on your own time. As you do that, I want you to go ahead and dissect them. I'll walk through a bit of one with you right now, and we can kind of see what they're doing. Hopefully we can do like a screen share. And if I can, it'll allow us to go ahead and take a look at the TED Talk as it's happening. What I would like you to do is take some notes at the same time as well. And see what we got going on. All right. Also, with the TED Talk, I'm looking for you to provide me with an outline of what you're going to talk about. The outline needs to be very much like the regular outlines that we've done before. If you've seen the outlines of models, I really want you to focus primarily on the model that we use in the demonstration speech. Again, if you have questions with that, please consult owl.purdue.edu. So let me go to the TED Talk, and we're going to try to share this particular screen. Let me know if you see it. You all see that?
Yes.
Good. Okay, so I'm going to start this off.
So it's 2006. My friend Harold Ford calls me. He's running for U.S. Senate in Tennessee. And he says, Melody, I desperately need some national press. Do you have any ideas? So I had an idea. I called a friend who was in New York at one of the most successful media companies in the world. And she said, why don't we host an editorial board lunch for Harold? You come with him. Harold and I arrive in New York. We are in our best suits. We look like shiny new pennies. And we get to the receptionist and we say, we're here for the lunch. She motions for us to follow her. We walk through a series of corridors, and all of a sudden we find ourselves in a stark room, at which point she looks at us and she says, where are your uniforms? Just as this happens, my friend rushes in. The blood drains from her face. There are literally no words, right? And I look at her and I say, now, don't you think we need more than one black person in the U.S. Senate? Now, Harold and I, we still laugh about that story. And in many ways, the moment caught me off guard.
Okay.
But deep
Let's
down
pause
inside.
this. What exactly did she do to open this up?
She gave a date.
She
And
what?
she gave a date and just started talking. Like, she didn't give an introduction. She just gave a date and started talking about whatever she was talking about.
Yes, that's at the rudimentary level, but let's think about it for what she basically is attempting to do. She provided an anecdotal introduction. An anecdotal introduction is basically a quick story to the point that grabs the attention of the audience. That's one technique to start this type of presentation. Also, look at the type of delivery that she is engaging in. Very extemporaneous, but it is also rather rehearsed. That is what I expect you all to do by the time we get to your final presentation. Again, the final presentation is due no later than December 4th at 5 p.m. Now, I'd like to have all components of the presentation submitted before you go home for Thanksgiving break. So what I'm thinking is I would like to have the PowerPoint, or better yet, the pictures, if you're using any, and I do require you to use pictures. I'd like to have all of that in my Dropbox, submitted to me no later than 5 p.m. by the time we go home for break. So as we do that, is that going to be a problem for any of you? So I'm looking at my calendar now. As I look at the calendar, let me see. Today is the 9th. So I would like to, let's say, have this stuff in. I would like to have your outline and PowerPoint submitted into me prior to, on no later than Tuesday the 21st. And that also includes the PowerPoint presentation. The PowerPoint presentation should not have words. The PowerPoint presentation should be photographs. Now again, the idea here is for you to discuss something that is your worst fear and how you conquered it. Questions so far?
No.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and proceed with the presentation that she has thus far.
I actually wasn't surprised. And I wasn't surprised because of something my mother taught me about 30 years before. You see, my mother was ruthlessly realistic.
I remember one day coming home from a birthday party where I was the only Black kid invited. And instead of asking me the normal motherly questions like, did you have fun or how was the cake? My mother looked at me and she said, how did they treat you? I was 7. I did not understand. I mean, why would anyone treat me differently? But she knew. And she looked me right in the eye and she said, they will not always treat you well. Now, race is one of those topics in America that makes people extraordinarily uncomfortable. You bring it up at a dinner party or in a workplace environment, it is literally the conversational equivalent of touching the third rail. There is shock, followed by a long silence. And even coming here today, I told some friends and colleagues that I plan to talk about race, and they warned me. They told me, don't do it. There'd be huge risks in me talking about this topic, that people might think I'm a militant Black woman and I would ruin my career. And I have to tell you, I actually for a moment was a bit afraid. Then I realized the first step to solving any problem is to not hide from it. And the first step to any form of action is awareness. And so I decided to actually talk about race. And I decided that if I came here and shared with you some of my experiences, then maybe we could all be a little less anxious and a little more bold in our conversations about race. Now, I know there are people out there who will say that the election of Barack Obama meant that it was the end of racial discrimination for all eternity, right? But I work in the investment business and we have a saying, the numbers do not lie. And here, there are significant, quantifiable racial disparities that cannot be ignored in household wealth, household income, job opportunities, healthcare. One example from corporate America. Even though white men make up just 30% of the US population, they hold 70% of all corporate board seats. Of this Fortune 250, there are only 7 CEOs that are minorities. And of the thousands of publicly traded companies today, thousands, only 2 are chaired by Black women. And you're looking at one of them, the same one who not too long ago was nearly mistaken for kitchen help. So that is a fact. Now, I have this thought experience that I play with myself, experiment. When I say, imagine if I walked you into a room and it was of a major corporation like ExxonMobil, and every single person around the boardroom were Black, you would think that were weird. But if I walked you into a Fortune 500 company and every around the table is a white male, when will it be that we think that's weird too? And I know how we got here. I know how we got here. You know, there was institutionalized and one time legalized discrimination in our country. There's no question about it. But I still, as I sort of grapple with this issue, my mother's question hangs in the air for me. How did they treat you? Now, I do not raise this issue to complain or in any way elicit any kind of sympathy. I have succeeded in my life beyond my wildest expectations. And I've been treated well by people of all races more often than I have not. I tell the uniform story because it happened. I cite those statistics around corporate board diversity because they are real. And I stand here today talking about this issue of racial discrimination because I believe it threatens to rob another generation of all the opportunities that all of us want for all of our children, no matter what their color or where they come from.
I'm going to pause right here. I want to get some feedback from you so you can tell me, in a nutshell, what you're taking from her presentation. What are you taking as far as how she's, one, presenting the information, also her use of story, her use of data, her use of experiences. What are you taking from that? And talk to me about how and why you would want to go ahead and have the same type of stuff within inside of your presentation.
With me, from what I'm understanding from her, is that when she sets that tone, it kind of gives, you know, it kind of takes your mind back. I'm speaking for myself. It kind of takes me back to when I was younger, and some of the things that, some of the ways that I was looked at as, you know, as a young person. And because when I was younger, I was bullied as a child because I was, you know, kind of fat. And listening to her talk about the situation of her being a woman, and then in the presence, and she said there were only two of them, and you know, two females there, and she was one of them, and putting her in that situation, and it was like putting me where I was with that situation, because I felt like, why am I the only one being picked on?
Mhm. So let's go ahead and try to focus more so on her delivery.
Mhm.
I want to think about the fact that she used statistics. I want to also go back and look at how she looked at her own experiences. How did that play into her effectiveness, her believability, her credibility as a speaker?
And as she was talking, she was bringing out points that were in a positive manner of her accomplishing what that fear that had set down into her.
Mhm.
And with her presenting and not saying, okay, I'm the only female that's doing this. And just like she made the remark about, what if the whole audience had been white? Would that have made a difference?
Well, I'm trying to follow your train of thought, because what I'm looking for compared to what I'm receiving, they're a little bit different. I really want to focus not essentially on the content or the topic of what she was discussing, but I do want to look at her delivery. I want to look at her delivery of statistics. I want to look at her experiences, who she is. How does that tie into her topic, which is colorblind or color brave? The topic, as we see, is talking exclusively about how do we get beyond being race tolerant and being race embracing. How do we get to that? And so what I want us to think about in her delivery, her position, her statistics, her story, how does that tie into her believability? How does that tie into her, I would say, her ability to be authentic, her authentic self? How does that tie into her ability to have the audience's attention? Someone else, please.
I guess I was looking at it like she used like growing up with today, with the I guess the issues that's going on with, she was saying, the racism. She used like growing up, things she went through. She kind of tied it all in together, just to kind of like show her just how she overcame it, like what she went through when she was little and believed in, with what today,
Okay.
what goes on today.
We're getting
So
this.
she kinda
Someone
tied
else. Okay, someone else pick up on that. That's a good start for us. Someone else take the lead. Sherry?
Yes,
Okay, I'm sorry.
that was me.
No. Mykesha.
I mean, I was kind of going to say the same thing. She used like real life events that happened in her life growing up to really know, or I can't really, I just know she used real life events that she went through to be able to see, or
Not just real life events, but she also used statistics and data.
That
As she used that information was able to tie into her discussion. It was able to lay a very solid foundation for the next part of her presentation or what she's going to discuss. Again, think about how the initial story opened up. The story opened up with her being assumed as being kitchen help, strictly because of her ethnicity and even her gender for that matter. So then as we go deeper into the story, she provides more anecdotal information, particularly the question that her mom asked, how did they treat you? Because she said, again, that not everyone is going to be that nice to you, right? And so as she goes deeper into that, we also can take a look at, again, her pace. We can take a look at her choice of words. We can take a look at our anecdotes that she provides. And she's able to seamlessly go from anecdote to statistical bits of information to experiential information to talking about her own place and positionality within the presentation. And as she's able to do that, she again is able to engage the audience. That's one of the things that you will be evaluated on with inside of this presentation. How are you able to engage the audience? And what's crucial or critical, for lack of a better term, is that you actually have an audience that you select. Now, again, the date is, this is November 4th. The speech is due December 4th. Or November 9th, the speech is due December 4th. So you've got some lead time in putting together your audience, but you also have to go ahead and start thinking about how you are going to incorporate these techniques. And mind you, I am not expecting everyone to be perfect. She clearly has made this presentation or presentations like this over the course of, I would say, 5 to 10 years, easily. But I do expect you, however, to practice, practice. Failure to practice is a practice in failure. You need to go ahead and really assume your topic. And here's the thing about it. Going back to the initial About Me pages and the speeches of introduction, you already know about yourself. So that is not going to be a challenge for you. But what is going to be the challenge is how do you talk about this fear that you overcame? And how do you do it in a way that's going to engage the audience and going to go ahead and basically get their attention and make you seem believable? Because you have 10 minutes you have to play with. And if anything comes in under 10 minutes, it will be docked by 10 points. Okay. So if you're if it's less, for example, the speech is 10 minutes. If you have a speech that comes in at 7 minutes, I'm taking 10 points off for every minute. Ooh. Yes. I'm glad I'm recording that, so I want to make sure that you all hear that clearly and make sure that you say that to all your friends in the class too. You must come in at 10 minutes. For every minute you are under, I will deduct 10 points. For every minute you go over, I will deduct 20 points. Yes, 20 points. So you kind of know where you kind of know your barriers. No less than 10, no more than 15. Questions?
So in other words, what you're saying is that once we start the presentation, then we need to go directly into that grabber.
When you start, you need to grab the audience's attention because I will be evaluating you on that. Okay. If you don't have the attention of the audience, you're wasting air and time.
Grab them time we start.
Absolutely. And as you grab their attention, then you have to maintain their attention for the remaining time. So let's say that we have a 12-minute presentation. I'm going to get the attention of the audience within the first 2 to 3 minutes. I have to do that. After that, by the time we get to, let's say, the 6th minute, I need to be pretty much well into my thesis. What am I going to discuss? How am I going to talk about this? By the time I get to the 8th minute, I need to be well into my material, well into my final points. By the time I hit minute 10, I need to be able to start wrapping things up. That's why I say practice is essential. Now, I had a student who attempted to turn in something to, I think it was the other day. I don't know who it was, I can't recall the name right now, but the student elected to turn in a topic that was completely off topic, and she sent it to me via email. Now, having said that, everyone knows I do not accept work via email, so I promptly told the individual, be glad that I don't take work via email, because if I did, you would receive a 0 and an F. So that's why it is important that you really heed caution. And I will again put all this in writing if there's any room, if we need clarification. I will do that between today and tomorrow. But right now, I want you to focus primarily on your fear. As you focus on that fear, I want you to look at the TED Talks that we provide, and there are plenty of TED Talks you can find on YouTube. These two stuck out to me because I enjoyed the topics. And there are various different delivery methods as well. If we take a look at the one that we have from Simon Sinek, that is an excellent piece of material as well. Let's take a look at that. Let's see if I can find it.
Imagine if I walked you into a room.
Let's see if I got it.
I am Micaiah Westbrooks, and I am the co-owner of Bricks Wine and Charcuterie. And
We're making their way.
Okay, so I'm gonna do a screen share and we'll start here.
There's a man by the name of Captain William Swenson, who recently was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor for his actions on September 8th, 2009. On that day, a column of American and Afghan troops were making their way through a part of Afghanistan to help protect a group of government officials, a group of Afghan government officials who'd be meeting with some local village elders. The column came under ambush and was surrounded on 3 sides. And amongst many other things, Captain Swenson was recognized for running into live fire to rescue the wounded and pull out the dead. One of the people he rescued was a sergeant, and he and a comrade were making their way to a medevac helicopter. And what was remarkable about this day is, by sheer coincidence, one of the medevac medics happened to have a GoPro camera on his helmet and captured the whole scene on camera. It shows Captain Swenson and his comrade bringing this wounded soldier who'd received a gunshot to the neck. They put him in the helicopter, and then you see Captain Swenson bend over and give him a kiss before he turns around to rescue more. I saw this, and I thought to myself, where do people like that come from? What is that? That is some deep, deep emotion when you would want to do that. There's a love there. And I want to know, why is it that I don't have people that I work with like that? You know, in the military, they give medals to people who are willing to sacrifice themselves so that others may gain. In business, we give bonuses to people who are willing to sacrifice others so that we may gain. Yeah. Right? So I asked myself, where do people like this come from? And my initial conclusion was that they're just better people. That's why they're attracted to the military. These better people are attracted to this concept of service. But that's completely wrong. What I learned is that it's the environment. And if you get the environment right, every single one of us has the capacity to do these remarkable things. And more importantly, others have that capacity too. I've had the great honor of getting to meet some of these who we would call heroes, who've put themselves and put their lives at risk to save others. And I asked them, why would you do it? Why did you do it? And they all say the same thing, because they would have done it for me. It's this deep sense of trust and cooperation. So trust and cooperation are really important here. The problem with concepts of trust and cooperation is that they are feelings. They're not instructions. I can't simply say to you, trust me, and you will. I can't simply instruct 2 people to cooperate, and they will. It's not how it works. It's a feeling. So where does that feeling come from? If you go back 50,000 years to the Paleolithic era, to the early days of Homo sapien, what we find is that the world was filled with danger. All of these forces working very, very hard to kill us. nothing personal. Whether it was the weather, lack of resources, maybe a saber-toothed tiger, all of these things working to reduce our lifespan. And so we evolved into social animals, where we live together and work together in what I call a circle of safety, inside the tribe, where we felt like we belonged. And when we felt safe amongst our own, the natural reaction was trust and cooperation. There are inherent benefits to this. It means I can fall asleep at night and trust that someone from within my tribe will watch for danger. If we don't trust each other, if I don't trust you, that means you won't watch for danger. Bad system of survival. The modern day is exactly the same thing. The world is filled with danger, things that are trying to frustrate our lives or reduce our success, reduce our opportunity for success. It could be the ups and downs of an economy, the uncertainty of the stock market. It could be new technology that renders your business model obsolete overnight. Or it could be your competition that is sometimes trying to kill you. It's sometimes trying to put you out of business, but at the very minimum is working hard to frustrate your growth and steal your business from you. We have no control over these forces. These are a constant and they're not going away. The only variable are the conditions inside the organization. And that's where leadership matters, because it's the leader that sets the tone. When a leader makes the choice to put the safety and lives of the people inside the organization first, to sacrifice their comforts and sacrifice the tangible results so that the people remain and feel safe and feel like they belong, remarkable things happen. I was flying on a trip and I was witness to an incident where a passenger attempted to board before their number was called. And I watched the gate agent treat this man like he had broken the law, like a criminal. He was yelled at for attempting to board one group too soon. So I said something. I said, why do you have to treat us like cattle? Why can't you treat us like human beings? And this is exactly what she said to me. She said, sir, if I don't follow the rules, I could get in trouble or lose my job. All she was telling me is that she doesn't feel safe. All she was telling me is that she doesn't trust her leaders. The reason we like flying Southwest Airlines is not because they necessarily hire better people. It's because they don't fear their leaders. You see, if the conditions are wrong, we're forced to expend our own time and energy to protect ourselves from each other. And that inherently weakens the organization. When we feel safe inside the organization, we will naturally combine our talents and our strengths and work tirelessly to face the dangers outside and seize the opportunities. The closest analogy I can give to what a great leader is, it's like being a parent. If you think about what being a great parent is, what do you want? What makes a great parent? We want to give our child opportunities, education, discipline them when necessary, all so that they can grow up and achieve more than we could for ourselves. Great leaders want exactly the same thing. They want to provide their people opportunity, education, discipline when necessary, build their self-confidence, give them the opportunity to try and fail, all so that they could achieve more than we could ever imagine for ourselves. Harley Kim, who's the CEO of a company called NextJump in New York City, a tech company, he makes the point that if you had hard times in your family, would you ever consider laying off one of your children? We would never do it. Then why do we consider laying off people inside our organization? Charlie implemented a policy of lifetime employment. If you get a job at NextJump, you cannot get fired for performance issues. In fact, if you have issues, they will coach you and they will give you support, just like we would with one of our children who happens to come home with a C from school. It's the complete opposite. This is the reason so many people have such a visceral hatred, sort of anger at some of these banking CEOs with their disproportionate salaries and bonus structures. It's not the numbers. It's that they have violated the very definition of leadership. They have violated it.
Okay, I'm going to pause there. Let's analyze the delivery. We'll start with you, Makisha.
You want me to tell you what I got from this?
I want you to tell me the introduction. I want you to tell me, did you believe him? I want you to tell me, were you engaged? I want you to tell me why. Yes, no to all the questions.
Well, his introduction started off by him given a real life experience that he actually gone through, and he was able to share it so that
he didn't go through it, he witnessed it.
yeah, that's, I mean, yeah.
Okay.
He witnessed it, and you know, he was actually, I guess, involved. And I believe him because he gave examples, or he talked about things that really do happen in life, such as making, like, the audience could relate to some of the things that he was saying, such as when he used the thing about the parents and the children and being in the environment with the job, and how, you know, you want the best for your children. And I can relate to that because that's true. So the things that he was saying, I do believe in what he was saying and trying to get across, the message he was trying to get across to the audience.
Very good.
And what was the other question you asked me?
Do you believe? So I guess you answered them all. And what he did was he appealed to your level of ethos. He appeared to appeal to your level of ethos. He appealed to the very things that are resonant to you as a parent. Me as a parent, as a matter of fact. He also appealed to the nature of work. Now, the topic, what he talks about is good leaders make you feel safe. Did he stay on topic, Ms. Downey?
Yes.
Tell me why.
Because he was setting the example, just like Alicia was saying, when he was talking about parenting. And we, as parents, we try to set that, be that, what's that word? That person that they see that they can follow as they're pursuing their goal. Okay. And with the way he was presenting it and talking about them, and he was talking about, you know, how his parents felt about the way he was moving on. And when you can look back and see stuff like that and hear stuff like that, that's a positive thing for you, because you know you're looking for the same thing.
Did he stay on message though? He stayed on message.
Yes, very much so.
Right. And as he stayed on message, that's something that is just as important. He's that familiar enough with this topic and is so familiar with the idea of leadership. Again, he provides us literally now with a graphic that talks about feeling safe. And that's the main thing he's talking about here. And how leaders make folks feel safe. He was able to provide us, again, with a good anecdotal introduction. He also provided us with other examples. Examples also help to reinforce your message. And so as you go into your presentations, in this case, how you overcame your fear, it is important that you provide us with examples. Evidence. Evidence is key towards presenting your topic. For example, I've had students, well, I've had this, and every professor has had it now, when students want to appeal a grade, right? How many of you all know about this whole thing? I don't like the grade I got to go talk to someone, blah, 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 right? We all had that conversation at one time or another. Right. So what are the most convincing arguments for a student, or that a student can use to go ahead and get some level of empathy, some level of action from a professor? What do they do? What do you do, your students? What would you do? Okay, so let me tell you what I did when I was in college. Okay, so what we do, before there was email, we took down documents. We documented everything. And as we documented everything, we used dates, times, and pieces of tangible evidence that we could provide that basically reinforced or supported our particular case. Students do it all the time. I have to do it when I have a student do a grade appeal. A student will say, well, I came by your office, I came by, da, 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 da. Okay, but did you come by during my office hours, which are clearly posted? Or, I turned in such and such. I get it, but did you turn it in by deadline? according to my syllabus, which states on subparagraph blah, 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 I do not take work after a certain time. If you submit it, it will not be evaluated. Boom. So you have to provide examples, evidence, to make your story convincing, to make us believe you. If you do not have that level of support, no one will believe you and you lose credibility as a speaker. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So let me ask this question as we're getting ready to wrap this up. What are some of the topics that you're thinking about engaging in for your presentation?
Mine, I thought about how I overcame traveling for a mission trip.
Okay, so the idea here is you're talking about traveling. So I'm taking you traveled out of the country, correct?
Yes.
So as you traveled out of the country, what were the things that you had to deal with traveling out of the country?
Making sure you had any medications or vaccinations that needed to be done.
Okay, so tell me about your story. Tell us about your story when you traveled out for your mission trip. How did you get to this mission trip?
Having to get on an airplane.
No, other than getting on a plane. How were you selected for this mission trip?
Okay. I was attending a church and they made an announcement that they were wanting volunteers to go on a medical mission.
Okay, and so where was this trip?
To Central America, Belize.
Belize. Okay, fine. Now, had you ever traveled out of the country before?
No.
So you had to get a passport, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you had to do a lot of pre-groundwork. Have you ever flown on a plane before?
No, it was my first time.
Boom. So the idea here is you have to come up with an interesting, engaging story that's
Okay.
2 to 4 minutes that tells us about you got on a plane for the first time, but you're not going in the country, you're going out of the country.
Right.
Now, for some people, I'm just doing it if I were you, but this is an example. So if I were doing that, I would open up with something about, many times I would open with something like, my heart was pounding. I'd never been on a plane before. And this is my first time. And not only am I taking the plane for the first time, I'm leaving the country for the first time. I don't do this every day. None of us, I don't do this every day. This is not who I am. Me, I am a person that takes classes at NCCU. Me, I'm a person who attends church regularly. Me, I'm a person who is studying to be a nurse practitioner, studying to be a nurse, getting an RN degree. Me is not one who travels out of the country. Mm-hmm. And for me to travel outside of the country, get on a plane for the first time, the only time I saw planes was in a television show or in a movie. Maybe I saw them going up in the air. Maybe I've gone to the airport. But for me, this is my first time. And for me, this was probably one of the most anxiety-inducing experiences I ever had to deal with. But for me, taking this trip, for me, fulfilling this mission obligation, for me, to conquer this fear of travel, this fear of getting out of the country, it was that important. So how did I go about this, you may ask? And that's how you go ahead and start off with a good introduction. Okay. Does that work?
Yes.
Tell me what worked about
that. The preparing them to, that will make somebody want to hear more.
Wow. How?
When the fear, all the anxiety that I was feeling before I went, what led to each, after, from the time before I got on the plane or leaving, how I felt versus once I got on the plane, how was I feeling on the plane, or, each, I guess every step that I went through to get to what I was doing.
Right. And so with that type of introduction, it allows for some level of speaker identification, right?
Okay.
Everybody has a fear. We all have fears. We have our anxieties. Now, we don't know what everyone's anxiety is, but we all, at one point in our time, in our life, have or will continue to negotiate with our own anxieties. And that's a common thing. So that grabs the attention of the audience. And now we're going to listen to a story about how you did it. Now, this is where I believe outlining becomes important.
Okay.
It is important for you to really structure what you're going to say. Because if you structure it, then you have a blueprint. You have a model. You have a skeleton, if you will. You have, I guess, a set of instructions that will guide you through from point A to point Z. That's why we outline, folks. Outlining is not an example or an exercise in something that's just boring, remedial. No. Outlining, it's like this. Before we had GPS and we wanted to take a trip, did we not plan a trip? Anybody gone to King's Dominion at all, or amusement park?
Yes.
Okay, how many of y'all gone to King's Dominion at least once? I have. Okay, so I did not go to King's Dominion at 5 years old by myself. There were people who planned the trip. As I got older, I had to plan my trip. So basically, what did I do? Before there was GPS, I made sure I knew which highway to take. Mm-hmm. So I got a map.
Yeah, right.
And with that map, I was able to follow and do what I had to go do. But if you go out without a map, what's the probability of you getting lost and you've never been to King's Dominion a day in your life?
You're going to get lost.
You will get lost.
Yes.
And it's the same way of making a speech. If you go out and try to make a speech and you have not practiced, you have not mapped out how you're going to get from point A to point Z, you will get lost. And not only will you get lost, your audience will get lost and your audience will leave you. Your audience will tune you out. Now, the other part of this is practicing. Audience will tune you out if you are distracting to them. Not being prepared is the kiss of death in making an audio, visual, oral presentation. There are many times when, for example, when I make a class, I have a syllabus. Why do I have a syllabus? Sometimes I will deviate from the syllabus, but the idea is that we know where we're going to start from and we know where we're going to end. We have this through what we call learning objectives. The learning objectives let the student know what to expect and what are the things they're going to leave here from the course when we're done. The syllabus is a map, if you will, or a roadmap of how we're going to get from not being an effective speaker to delivering a TED Talk at the end of the semester. We will do steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. We may have to deviate from step 3, come up with a side step for step 3A, and still go to 4. If we have to, we'll go back, but again, there is a map in place because, again, no one wants to be lost, right? One of the reasons that happened to me in this semester, which rarely happens, but it happened this semester, is that I was inundated with a lot of external responsibilities that I did not anticipate or plan for. So as that happened, unfortunately, in my case, and using this as an example of being focused, I had to do, I had to do a book editing contract. I had to write a manuscript. I also had to serve in an administrative capacity. I had to advise other students. I had all these other things that I really had not planned for. And so because of that, it kind of had a negative impact on some of the other things that I was trying to do. And so if we don't plan, then we plan to fail. Living example. And my testament next semester is to make sure that I do not overburden myself with the responsibilities so the students lose out in the end. And that's one of the things that we have to make sure we do. That's why outlining is important. Okay, that's why when you outline, you plan your presentation. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not an exercise in trying to be punitive. It's not an exercise in being mundane. It is an exercise in effective time management. Because as you effectively manage your time, then you're able to go ahead and get through your presentation quickly and smoothly and make your transitions as seamless as possible. Make sense?
Yes.
All right. So one of the things I'm going to do is I end this right now. I'm going to go ahead and, whoopsie, I'm going to go ahead and end this conversation early, but I am going to make myself available for individual discussions, and I will probably have a few other tutorials that will help you along the way. What I would also like to do as we do this is come up with ways that we have various points of check-in. So what I would like to see people do, and again, I'm not going to grade them hard. What I am going to do is monitor this. As I monitor your progress, I want to see where you are with first planning your topic. You need to outline your topic. So what I'm going to do is look at my calendar. And I want to say, let's say by the 14th, everyone should have a topic to me of what you're going to talk about regarding your fear. By the 14th. By the 17th, which is a Friday, I would like to have the outlines. Again, I'm not going to grade them for the purposes of A, B, C, D. I'm going to look at them so we can figure out, okay, where's everybody at? By the time we get to the 21st, I would like to have, and I will try to make sure I jot these down. So I said the 14th, we want to have your topic. By the 17th, I need your outlines. By the 21st, I want to have the visuals that you are going to use to tell your story. And I would also like to have a confirmed list of members in your audience and where you're going to present this at. By the 30th, when we get back, I want to see presentations by the 30th. And the last day I'm going to take a presentation, folks, is going to be on the 4th of December. On December 5th, I'm turning in final grades. Now, for those who may be asking, I do not believe in extra credit. I do not do extra credit. Now, what I am willing to do, no, I'm not even going to do that. I will allow people to turn in things they have not turned in at a 50% grade deduction, because 50% is better than no percent. But by December 4th, my grade book will be closing. So please take advantage of this time to talk with me, schedule appointments with me, so we can make this happen in everyone's best interest. Again, what I've elected to do, because I have been somewhat negligent in some areas, I'm going to advance everyone a passing grade of A on the demonstration speech, because I don't want to see anybody fail, especially when I could have done things better. So I'm going to do that way. But I am going to grade this final presentation with all due diligence and every bit of attention to detail. So if you're interested, I'm even willing, possibly, I am willing on the on Saturday the 30th. That's the wrong date. I am willing on, let's say, Saturday the 2nd. I'm willing to, I shouldn't say that, that's too much. Today is the 9th. I'm willing to some degree on Saturday the 18th to meeting with people for a face-to-face class to go over this in great detail. Does that sound like something that would be of interest to anybody? If not, fine, I'll stay home and you guys can wing it on your own. Let me know, and I'll put that in writing as well. If you can't do it, that's great, I'm good. But that's just me attempting to make sure that we put forth every effort to make sure that we get the best work out of everybody possible. Is that good?
Yes.
Okay, so folks, it is about 8:11. I'm gonna go ahead and call it a night, but I will check in periodically with you via email as well. And I might even make a few additional posts to help you guys get through this. If you have no further questions, I'm going to call it an evening. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, you all have a good night. Take care.
Thank you.